Good afternoon. Next Friday at 5 o'clock, we're having a pizza party. Please come join us. So what happens when we get a new minister, as we now have, the Unitarian Universalist Association sort of gifts us a weekend to come together and share who we are as a congregation with our new minister and help to build good connections for a strong future together. I'm going to use this one. So that's what happened. That's what is happening. That's the genesis of the weekend next weekend. So we'll begin on Friday, like I said, with a pizza party, 5 o'clock to 5:45. We didn't want anyone to have to worry about dinner. And then at 5:45 to 7:45, we'll have 2 hours of a variety of activities, as I understand it, that are really centered on us being able to tell our story and help Reverend Chris to get to know us and our history. So I think it'll be really, really cool for me. I've been here about 15 years. I'm sure I'm going to hear stories I haven't heard before. So if you've been here for a long time, come share your stories. You might hear something new too. If you've been here for a short time, come. I think it'll be really great. So that's the big event on Friday. On Saturday, there are some other things going on for leadership, so that on Saturday morning, if you have been a leader in this congregation in this year or maybe the last year or so, since we're in the middle of a year, you are invited to come on Saturday morning for about 2 hours, 9:45 to 11:45, and then the board has a working session in the afternoon. And on Sunday, our facilitator, Kiana Dene Perkins, will lead the service, give the sermon, and do all the other normal things that the service leader does. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thanks.
And while it is not directly related to that part of the weekend events, Saturday night is also the Delphi concert. If you have not had a chance to hear our amazing Delphi band, please come. They are a lot of fun. I believe that's 7 p.m. Yes, Bruce? 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Sunday mornings, we need lots of volunteers to help make things run. This morning, I am thrilled to be joined by Bruce, our music director, our fantastic band, Katie, Brian, and Byron on the back and tech, and Janice Sandcott online helping get our slides together, as well as Katie on those. But we also need help with things like setting up treats for after service. This morning, Marie and Wendy jumped in because no one had signed up, but we don't have anyone signed up for the next 3 weeks. And we would love to keep being able to enjoy our fellowship time with a little refreshment as well, so we can nourish both our bodies and our spirits. So if you are able and interested, we can certainly help you learn how to do all of that. You don't have to worry about doing it alone. We will coach you through. But please take a minute and sign up. This will be on the back table after service. And with that, I welcome you into this space and time for worship together, where we make meaning, find a place of sanctuary, reconnect, and sometimes even challenge ourselves to grow. This morning, I will light our chalice in person. If you have one online and would like to light yours at home, I invite you to join me in doing so now. Our opening words this morning are an adaptation of words originally written by Rumi, who was a Muslim poet. And these are adapted and written by the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. Come, come, whoever you are. Come with your hurts, your imperfections, your places that feel raw and exposed. Come, come, whoever you are, with your strengths that the world shudders to hold. Come with your wild imaginings of a better world. Come with your hopes that it seems no one wants to hear. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, we will make a place for you. We will build a home together. Ours is no caravan of despair. We walk together. Come yet again, come.
I have one of my favorite books this morning, and Eric and I were debating how we found this book, and we still can't quite remember. We think it was from another minister friend of ours. It's called The Name Jar, and it is by, make sure I get, Young Suk Choi. And so if you would like to move forward to see the pictures better, we don't have slides this morning, but there's seats in the front, or you are welcome to sit up here on the floor with us. Come on. You gonna do some yoga while you sit on the floor, Marie? Through the school bus window, Eun-hye looked out at the strange buildings and houses on the way to her new school. It was her first day, and she was both nervous and excited. There she is. She fingered the little block of wood in her pocket and remembered leaving her grandmother at the airport in Korea. Her grandmother had wiped away Eun-hae's tears and handed her an ink pad and a small red satin pouch. "Your name is inside," she said. "My name?" Eun-hae had wondered. Again, she took out the red pouch to look at the wooden block with her name carved in it. As she ran her fingers along the grooves and ridges of the Korean characters, she pictured her grandmother's smile. "Is that thing for show and tell?" a boy asked Eun-hae to her surprise. Eun-hae looked up as more kids leaned over. "No, it's mine," Eun-hae answered, quickly putting the pouch back in her pocket. "Are you new here? What's your name?" a girl asked. "Eun-hae," said Eun-hae. "Ooh-nee?" the girl asked, scrunching up her face. "Ooh-nee," some kids chanted. No, Eun-hae corrected. It's spelled U-N-H-E-I. It's pronounced Yoon-hae. "Oh, it's you-hae," the boy said, like you, hey. "What about hey you?" Just then, the bus pulled up to the school, and the doors opened. Eun-hae hurried to get off. "You-hae, bye-bye," the kids yelled as she left. Eun-hae felt herself blush. Eun-hae stood in the doorway of her new and noisy classroom. She was relieved that the kids on the bus had gone to other rooms, but her face still felt red. "Aren't you going in?" asked a curly-haired boy with lots of dots on his face. "You're the new girl, right?" he asked cheerfully. Eun-hae nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy took her hand and pulled her through the door. "Here's the new girl," he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Kokotis, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Kokotis thanked him and greeted Eun-hae. "Please welcome our newest student," he said to the class. "She and her family have just arrived from Korea last week." Eun-hae smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. "What's your name?" someone shouted. Eun-hae pictured the kids on the bus. I haven't picked one yet," she told the class, "but I'll let you know by next week." Mr. Kokotis showed her to her desk. She felt many round, curious eyes on her as Mr. Kokotis showed her to her desk. "Oops, why doesn't she have a name?" she heard someone whisper. "Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity," a boy replied. Assumptions that we make about people. On the bus home, nobody teased her, but Eun-hae kept thinking about her name. "How was school, Eun-hae?" her mother asked when she walked in. "Did you understand the teacher?" Eunhye simply nodded. She unpacked her school bag and set the red pouch by a photograph of her grandma. I'm glad you're learning English well, her mother said. You must study hard, behave nicely, and get good grades to show that you are a good Korean. I will, replied Eunhye. But I think I would like my own American name, she said quickly. Her mother looked at her with surprise. Why? Eunhye is a beautiful name. Your grandmother and I went to a name master for it. But it's so hard to pronounce, Eunhye complained. I don't want to be different from all the other American kids. You are different, Eunhye, her mother said. That's a good thing. Eunhye wrinkled her nose. Later that day, Eunhye and her mother went grocery shopping in their new neighborhood. They passed Fadil Falafel, Tony's Pizza, and Dot Deli. A big graffiti-painted garbage truck roared like a lion as it took off down the street. Nothing sounded or looked familiar until they got to Kim's Market. The sign was in both English and Korean. Her mother picked up cabbage to make kimchi, Korean-style spicy pickled cabbage, and other vegetables and meat. She also found some seaweed, Eunhye's favorite, for soup. It made Eunhye smile. Just because we've moved to America, her mother said, doesn't mean we stop eating Korean food. At the checkout counter, a friendly man smiled at Eunhye. Helping your mother with shopping, he asked. Eunhye nodded. I'm Mr. Kim, he said, and what's your name? Eunhye, she answered. Ah, what a beautiful name, he said. Doesn't it mean grace? Eunhye nodded again. My mother and grandmother went to a master for it, she told him. A graceful name for a graceful girl, Mr. Kim said, as he put their groceries into bags. Welcome to the neighborhood, Eunhye. That evening, Eunhye stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Hi, my name is Amanda, she said cheerfully. Then she wrinkled her nose. Hi, my name is Laura. Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. I don't think American kids will like me, she worried as she began to brush her teeth. Hurry, my name is Susie, she said to the mirror with her mouth full of toothpaste. The next morning, when Eunhye arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk with some pieces of paper in it. Eunhye took one out and read it aloud. Daisy. That's my baby sister's nickname, but she said you could use it if you want, said Cindy, who sat next to her. Eunhye took out the rest of the paper. Tamala, she read. I got it from a storybook, said Nate. She was smart and brave. Eunhye nodded and unfolded another piece of paper. Wednesday? Yeah, you came here on Wednesday, said Ralph. Thank you for your help. A smile spread over Eunhye's face. Ralph quickly said, we'll put more names in. You can pick whatever you like or pick them all. You'll have the longest name in history. At 3:00, the bell rang for the end of the school day. Eunhye looked out the window and saw it was sprinkling. It's the same rain, she thought, but in a different place. She watched other kids leaving in groups. Hey, a familiar voice called out to her. Eunhye turned around to see the curly-haired boy again. I'm Joey, he said. And you? Don't you have any name? Eunhye thought for a moment. Well, I can show you, she said, and took out the small red pouch. She pressed the wooden block on the ink pad and then stamped it on a piece of paper. "This is my name stamp," she said. "My grandma gave it to me. In Korea, I can use it as a signature when I open a bank account or write a letter. And whenever I miss my grandma, I use it to fill a piece of paper. Want to try it?" She offered the stamp to Joey, and he carefully inked the stamp and pressed it hard on the paper. The red characters gleamed against the whiteness. "Wow, that's beautiful," Joey said. "Can I keep the paper?" "Sure," Eunhae said. And then the two of them shared her umbrella as they walked to the school bus. Every day, the jar got fuller and fuller with more names, and Eunhae read them all. She found a few names she liked: Miranda, Stella, Avery. They sounded interesting. "I hope you choose the name I put in," Marco told her at snack time. "I've put in 3 more," said Ralph. "Madison Park and Lex. They're my favorite street names." "Maybe you should close your eyes and draw a name," Rosie suggested. Ralph frowned. "That's silly. What if she doesn't like the name she draws?" "Well, we didn't get to choose our names when we were born, did we?" Rosie argued. Everyone thought about this. When Eunhae got home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from Grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, "To my Eunhae, I hope you are enjoying your new school and new friends. Be sure to help your mother and little brother. Here, the moon is up, but there, the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, and no matter how different America is from Korea, you'll always be my Eunhae. Your grandma, forever." Eunhae took out her wooden stamp and filled a paper with it. She thought for a long time in front of the bathroom mirror. On Saturday, Eunhae walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. "Hi, Eunhae." "Hello, Mr. Kim," Eunhae replied. She felt as if she was back in her old neighborhood in Korea. "Hey," said the customer, turning around. It was Joey. "Your name is Eunhee?" he asked her with his eyes open wide. Eunhae looked quickly at Mr. Kim, then turned to Joey. She nodded slowly. "Yes, it's pronounced Eunhae." "And it means grace," Mr. Kim added. "Eunhae," Joey said slowly, and this time perfectly. It made Eunhae smile. "I'll have it ready for you tomorrow," said Mr. Kim to Joey. "Thank you, Mr. Kim. See you Monday, Eunhae," Joey said to her. He left before she could ask him why he was at the store. On Monday, Eunhae came to class early to look at the names one last time. But the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was a single piece of paper with a name on it. Eunhae slipped it in her pocket. "Where's your name jar?" Ralph asked as soon as he saw it was gone. "I don't know," Eunhae said. It wasn't on Mr. Kokotos's desk or on any other desk, and it wasn't on the counters or any of the shelves. As the other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon, Mr. Kokotos came in, and Ralph shouted at him, "The name jar is gone! The jar with all the names in it!" "Gone?" Mr. Kokotos replied, with a look of concern. He asked Eunhae, "Did you get a chance to read all the names?" Eunhae nodded. She took a breath. "I'm ready to introduce myself," she said. Eunhae wrote her name in both English and Korean on the chalkboard. "I liked the beautiful names and funny names you thought of for me," she told the class. "But I realized that I like my name best. so I chose it again. Korean names mean something. Eunhae means grace. Grace, grace, Eunhae, shouted Ralph. Everyone tried to say it. Eunhae, Eunyi, Eunhae. Eunhae said her name again, slowly and clearly. Soon, the kids began to say it better. Even Mr. Kokotos. They applauded Eunhae's choice. I was named after a flower, Rosie whispered to Eunhae. Lots of American names have meanings too, Mr. Kokotos reminded everyone. When the class was dismissed, Eunhae heard her friends say goodbye. Bye, Eunhae, see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Eunhae. Eunhae said goodbye and then looked around for Joey, but he was already gone. Eunhae, Eunhae, come downstairs, Mother called up to Eunhae. Your friend is here. Eunhae rushed downstairs to see who she meant. There stood Joey, and in his arms was the name jar. Where did you find it? Asked Eunhae breathlessly. Joey looked embarrassed. Well, I took it. But only because I wanted you to keep your own name. And you did. He reached in and pulled out the names. Do you want to keep them? He asked. Thank you. I'll keep them as a souvenir, Eunhae said happily. Then she pulled out the piece of paper from her pocket. Do you want this back? Joey grinned. You can keep it. I'll return the name jar to class. Maybe you could put some Korean nicknames in it for us. Names with good meanings. I could do that, agreed Eunhae. I've already got a Korean nickname, Joey said. Mr. Kim helped me choose it. Carefully, he pulled a small silver felt pouch out of his pocket. Then he took out a dark wooden stamp with beautiful Korean characters carved sharply into it. He pressed it on the ink pad and then on the piece of paper next to her name. Chinku, he read Eunhae. That means friend. And Chinku smiled back. The end.
We have had a number of already very inspirational words this morning. I feel like I could just stop there, but I have 3 sermons worth of material to preach, so I'm going to talk a little bit more. I promise it won't be all 3 sermons worth. It's very appropriate that our theme for the month of February is practicing liberating love through the practice of inclusion. Right, I said it in my weekly video this week that we have seen so many things aimed at excluding, right? At drawing a narrower and narrower circle about who is valuable, who is included, and that is antithetic to who we are as Unitarian Universalists. I'm going to start by reading part of our new Article 2. Right, we've talked a little bit about the way that we are centering love through the practice of justice, equity, inclusion, plurality, generosity. Which one am I missing? Transformation. Jet pig, yeah. I got off of my jet pig, though, and then I couldn't get back on it. But there's another section of Article 2 that specifically talks about inclusion. Oh, because the I is interdependence, not inclusion. But section C24, for those of you who like numbers, is about inclusion. And it says, systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups of particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive as an association of congregations we strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities. Folks, inclusion is part of who we are. But sometimes, for me, maybe for you too, talking about inclusion in this big language way can feel hard to know where to start. Right? What does this look like in everyday, practical ways? Which is why I wanted to share our story this morning. We saw inclusion in the relationship between Joey and Eunhye. The ways they welcomed each other weren't about come and be in my space in my way, but they were about learning to know each other and learning to know each other not on a surface level, but in a deep way. A way that stepped into the other's shoes. It said, I want to understand who you are so that I can help create a space for you to be authentically all of who you are. I think it's very appropriate that this came through the process of naming. Right? In this case, it was a personal name. And that can be deeply important of how we name ourselves. The names we claim, the names we keep, the histories that are in those names and what they say about who we are in this world. Sometimes we keep the names we're given. Sometimes we need to claim new names. Not because of someone else, not because of our fear of what other people might think of us or be able to interact with us, but because our names express who we are. But names are one layer of identity. And there are other ways in which we name our identities that link into how we are included. We saw in the executive order trying to limit pronouns, right? Trying to say that he and she are the only ways of existing. And while we know this is both scientifically untrue and spiritually damaging, it also points to something bigger about naming. When we are able to claim names and ways of describing our identity that truly fit who we are, it gives us power. It empowers us to embody ourselves in a new way. And those who are seeking to limit, right, the elimination of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, is another example of this attempt to limit our ability to name our experiences. I name myself as Krista Weber Huang, but I also name myself as Reverend. I name myself as white. I name myself as bisexual. I name myself as a person with ADHD. I name myself as someone from a middle-class background, currently middle class. I name myself as someone living in a temporary ably-bodied body. I name myself as a cis woman. I name myself as an American. I name myself as a person of faith. And so many more. I name myself as a mother, as a spouse. All of these ways of naming claim a part of who I am. And they tell you something about who I am and how we can welcome each other the more we know about the ways we name one another, the names each of us claim in our lives. Brené Brown, in her most recent book, Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Language, says, she's talking about one of her models, and she says that knowing and applying the language of human experience and emotion is a key property of all of the major categories that support meaningful connection. So she calls out this importance in being able to connect with other people, right? That language is at the core of how we connect with each other. So I encourage you in this coming week and coming month as we talk about inclusion, reflect on all of the ways that you claim your name, claim your identity and your sense of self, and what that means for how you listen to how others claim themselves. And we'll go into more, because as I said, I've got 3 sermons of this stuff. But be aware, and one more nugget to leave you with. We often hear the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But when we're really thinking about inclusion and we're thinking about naming ourselves and how that relates to inclusion, there's another rule called the platinum rule that says, do unto others as they would have done unto them. I know my identity and how I want to feel welcomed, but I may not know someone else's. So to truly be inclusive means getting to know the other person's identities and ways of naming themselves so that we can do unto them as they would like done, so that we can empower one another. I'm going to change my closing words this morning because I didn't get to this quote earlier, and I think it's an important one. Alec Vadid-Menon says, the situation facing trans and gender non-conforming people in the United States right now is really bleak. And I really want to have an earnest plea that people stop framing this as a minority issue and reframe this as a universal attack on self-determination. Right? A universal attack on self-determination. Every one of us should be able to determine our own gender. No one else should be able to tell us what we should look like, how we should act, and what we should do with our bodies. So we need you to show up in this moment, not just out of an ethic of allyship. That doesn't feel like enough for me. But out of an insistence and your own dignity, your own capacity to transform, and your own love of self. May each of us remember this coming week that we are loved. You are loved in all of who you are, and you deserve to be a part of a community that holds that love as sacred.